The next set of question is based on general direction that cloud technology is going, and this I'll just put it out in the open, and I'll request all of you to chip in. So one of the things that I've seen is that Indian IT sector in general is a very services-oriented IT sector, right? And they are the one who kind of drive the growth, and they are the one who drive the employment in this country and the software exports. We don't really have a lot of product-based companies that have come out which were hugely successful out of India, right? So, and one of the feature of services-based companies is that they are very slow to adapt to the market conditions. Only when the customers are knocking on the door saying we want this, they will start learning about technology. What are your general thoughts in that direction? Are companies in India really getting cloud aware and getting to a point where they can leverage cloud, or do you think that there is still a lot to be done? And is that a risk to Indian IT business?
It's a kind of a conundrum today for large IT companies. We are talking with at least 2 or 3 very large IT companies on how they can leverage a cloud-based product for their customers. Right now, one of the fundamental things about the nature of IT services companies is that they all work for large multinationals and large corporates across the world who own their own data centers. And unless they see that their customers are moving onto the cloud, these guys are ever going to push something onto the cloud. So we are seeing a statement of intent from the big 5 IT services in India that they have a cloud strategy, and they want to do a number of things on the cloud. But we haven't seen any of it really translate into actual reality. At best, you can see products being offered as a hosted service. That is the closest that you can see anybody has come to something like a cloud, and that is where it is right now. And but if you talk to these IT companies themselves, whether you would be willing to consume cloud services, you would find a resounding no. That they are not willing to consume cloud services, and unless they start experiencing cloud-based service and how beneficial it is even for their own, whether through a private cloud or even on the public cloud, these things are going to remain in underground for a very long time. But in our discussions that we are having with 2 or 3 large companies, we think they are attempting to do this. And I think it will be 2 or 3 years before we see something really coming up. But the real thrust in cloud in India is essentially going to come from the SMBs. I think SMBs are going to embrace the cloud more than anybody else. And none of the big IT companies really embrace SMBs as much. So there is a huge potential for a huge number of startups that can come and provide these kind of services to the SMB industry in India. And similar is the case all across the world. And I think as people start getting comfortable with data security on the cloud, and how the cloud service providers ensure data security from their perspective as well, and how you can start hosting data in geographic locations so that you can comply with local regulations as well. And once all of these variations start coming into the cloud provider network, I think it's still some years away.
I do see that enterprises have a lot of inertia in trying to move to the cloud. The first thing they say, I have my legacy apps which I built some 10 years ago, and how do I move these into the cloud? And I've seen that SMBs are the ones who are more, especially ones who are starting up building new products and they need to pivot and change the product literally to host it in the cloud. I've seen a lot of these companies more willing towards the cloud. But I think the answer to even enterprises moving into the cloud is start with an infrastructure as a service, or a private cloud hosted, and even migrate the legacy applications into a private data center, private cloud, and they can have a hybrid cloud kind of scenario later and then move there. The problem with this is no one understands how to do it. This is how they do it, or they are still in the traditional data center world, mainframes and whatever legacy applications. And I think there's a huge opportunity for a lot of startups to help them in terms of providing consulting, training, or even some solutions which can help enterprises move their applications into the cloud. I think there's potential there.
Absolutely. I think that my question was more, this is great insight, was more in terms of risk to India. Because all these big countries, all these big companies, if they are going to wait until the customers ask them cloud solutions, and by the way, we might have heard that even CIA is moving to cloud now, right? So sooner or later, everybody is going to be on cloud. So eventually, even the big companies in USA are going to move to cloud, and they would want Indian companies to support them. And if they are going to start reinventing the wheel at that time, is it going to be late? Is it going to be a challenge for Indian IT that we would not have the right skill set when they need it, and that business might go somewhere else?
It's definitely
true, I think.
Yeah.
I think most of us are basically a little bit slow by culture, right? If we don't pick it up, and as you said, do all our R&D now and explore it now, later on when the time comes to actually leverage that cloud for doing business, we may basically be a little bit late behind in that. So it's definitely a risk, I think, right? But then there's an opportunity for players like us to go in and market it and promote it. And as Satya very rightly said, and even Pavan, right? Yeah, Pavan said, the startup community is going to play a very major role, because if you guys are going to provide services and solutions on the cloud and show the way, right, definitely everyone else is going to follow, because you have the opportunity at this point of time to decide where you want to take your solutions to.
So, unlike the Y2K opportunity, where you knew that the year 2000 was coming, and everybody geared up and all the companies grew big. There is no Y2K like date for trust, right? But to some guys, it's clearly visible, and they will be known as visionaries. And to some guys, it will not be visible, and they'll be known as followers. But we don't know exactly who among these are visionaries today. But from whom we talk with, yeah, they are taking baby steps towards this. And I think any startup that is working on the cloud has this huge opportunity to start collaborating with many of these guys and then start right away whenever it comes. And I think it's going to happen sooner than later.
Just to last add to it, as Mohammed also mentioned, culturally we've already traditionally been a country where we have been slow to kind of move with newer technologies. It's about skepticism. When virtualization, VMware came up with x86 virtualization in early 2001. Everyone, including the big system integrators, made comments that this is not meant for enterprise applications, right? And now it's a foregone conclusion. Everyone runs virtualization in a data center. Similar with open source, when Red Hat came with the open source wave initially in the enterprise sector, everyone said open source is not meant for the traditional heavy-duty applications. But ultimately it got kind of adopted. And same with the cloud as well. We're seeing a similar kind of resistance there. And finally, it's a question of when rather than a question of if. Now, typically to answer the question specifically with the bigger SIs and how they're thinking of it, I think the major challenge is thinking of the cloud with the enterprise and SIs as an all or nothing approach, right? Whenever they look to kind of have an enterprise adopt the cloud, they're thinking of it as an entire data center move or a consolidation into the cloud, rather than thinking of it in a phased approach. And what we're seeing with enterprises is they're going via the extending the data center now, which is more of a hybrid model, wherein you keep what you have in a data center and have certain greenfield projects which are more kind of conducive to the cloud, or even let's say dev test environments, right? A lot of people don't realize bigger enterprises have a bigger pain managing dev test because there are hundreds of them versus production workloads. This is actually a very odd thing to say, but they have bigger dev test farms and production farms, and they have these huge set of developers, SIs as well as enterprise customers alike, which they could easily benefit from the cloud in terms of having this seamless elasticity to spin up environments and do UAT testing and then just tear them down and stop paying for it. So typically extending the data center of enterprise into the cloud and then kind of moving in a phased approach is what we are starting to see. And SIs are starting to get that, but it will take time.
A couple of observations here.
So one is Indian IT companies are smart. So the fact that so they are smart, is all the reason why they are still in existence now. The second fact is the slowness. Has been the global phenomenon. It is not limited to India. I have seen it in China, I have seen it in US, and we see it in India also. There is always also a section of players who will leap forward. There is always a section of people who will follow the leaders, and some certain section of people who will probably catch them up after 10 or 15 years. For example, take USA for example. Netflix is the pioneer. So how many Netflixes can you count in cloud space? Not many. Probably it will take a decade for American companies to appreciate what Netflix model has been. And the second aspect, opportunity-wise, I think Indian IT industry per se is realizing the fact that NASCOM, when they called for incubation, so there were 4,000 applications, and 66% of the applications are ready to cloud or something. That's what I heard of in newspapers. The fact that government of India has come up with a GA cloud policy in April. So talks about government is also thinking in the direction. So SMB sector has been using cloud, and the amount of engineering talent that we have been supplying engineers for the global IT industry for the last decade. So it all plays. So probably. But having said that, there is always some people who will leap forward, and these people will determine how the code should be.